If you were to ask someone who the nemesis of Sonic the Hedgehog is, I'm sure most of you would answer with Dr. Eggman / Dr. Robotnik. Some might even say Shadow, though that may be only if you ask somebody's gran, whose only knowledge of the franchise comes from buying their grandchild toys. If you were to ask me, I'd probably say Eggman too. But there is an antagonist who has shown up a few times that I fully believe had the potential to be an even better villain, and an almost perfect counter to Sonic that, unfortunately, didn't really live up to their full potential. A villain that had a lasting impact on me, despite only having shown up about 3 times in the entire franchise. That is Neo Metal Sonic. To preface this, I need to admit that I'm not a Sonic the Hedgehog mega fan. I've enjoyed most of the games I've played in the franchise, but I've nowhere near touched them all. I have some figures, and I have loads of the songs from the soundtracks in my library. I don't have any OCs, although I know Shaun the Hedgehog exists, and he has his own train. That's cool, isn't it? I played Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Adventure 2 a lot as a kid, and it wasn't until 2 years ago that I actually went back and played the classics. This video is basically the insane ramblings of somebody who played Sonic Heroes as a kid and thought Neo Metal Sonic and his transformations were the coolest thing I'd ever seen since Super Saiyan 3. I also need to address something that may draw some nitpicks. Neo Metal Sonic is essentially just an upgrade of the regular Metal Sonic, so they are actually the same character. But I consider them to be different enough to warrant the whole premise of this video. It's like Kid Buu and Super Buu. They're both different forms of Majin Buu, but we know they're different from each other. Metal Sonic was designed by Eggman as a direct counter to Sonic, a machine that was faster and stronger and evil. Since his first appearance in Sonic CD in 1993, Metal Sonic has gone on to be a franchise mainstay, popping up every so often to harass the Hedgehog and his mates, usually under the command of Eggman. He had a noteworthy appearance in the OVA, and generally shows up in all the games that allow you to play as different characters, you know, like kart racing and that. He's been pretty consistent throughout, never drastically changing, apart from that one time. Metal Sonic's appearance in 2003 Sonic Heroes was something special. It had been 10 years since his debut back in CD, and this time the dude was packing some serious upgrades. Throughout the game, you're led to believe that Dr. Eggman is back up to his old tricks again, trying to conquer the world. However, through the various cutscenes throughout, you catch glimpses of a shadowy figure, along with voice lines that may clue you in on something far more sinister afoot, something more metallic. When all the team stories have been completed, and the 7 Chaos Emeralds have been obtained through awful special stages, you see this absolute banger of a splash screen. Defeat Last Evil. I'm sorry, but that just goes so hard. Anyway, on the party select menu, you can now access the last story, which puts you straight into the true ending. It is revealed that Dr. Eggman has actually been locked up this entire time, and the one pulling the strings has been Metal Sonic. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The intro cutscene literally shows him right there, along with the other cutscenes. So unless you skip them, or were a literal baby, the plot twist of Metal Sonic being the true villain shouldn't come as a surprise. This entire time he's been acting from the shadows, copying the data of other characters to power himself up. Sonic Heroes was all about the characters working together as a team to overcome anything, and Metal Sonic's plan can be seen as a twisted inverse of that. Working together achieves great results, so absorbing the data of others to try and make yourself stronger may seem like a reasonable enough alternative to achieve those very same results. Sonic had his friends to work with, and Metal Sonic had nobody. Though the game doesn't actually use the name, this new version of him is officially known as Neo Metal Sonic. I'm just gonna say it, Neo Metal Sonic looks cool as hell. It's like they took the base form Metal Sonic and thought, right lads, how do we make this more extreme? Base form Metal Sonic was already iconic, and rightfully so. But Neo takes that little baby mecha hog and gives it a spiked boot up the ass, dragging it right into his edgy teenage phase. You've got the shoulder pads, the spiked belt, the skirt thing that I really like on Clone Troopers, and the clown shoes that honestly I couldn't do without. The spines have even been stretched out so much that he looks a bit like a starfish, but I like it, it's like he's gone Super Saiyan. Given that he only locked Eggman up and didn't outright kill him, it could be assumed that he doesn't outright hate his creator and wanted him dead, he just needed him out of the way while he did his thing. He could even still have some respect for him since, I mean, he was the one who brought him into existence. It's also a kids game, so we can't really have that... Oh wait, that happened, didn't it? After a bit of monologuing about his superiority, Neo Metal Sonic summons a giant bolt of lightning and destroys the Eggman Tower he was standing on. This facilitates an elaborate transformation sequence that admittedly goes on for quite a while. Seriously, you could literally go and make a ham and crisp sandwich and a cup of tea in the time it takes for this to go on. This results in a giant mechanical monstrosity that's a cross between a kaiju and that one part of my bedroom where all my gaming cables are. He's got a head that looks like a manta ray is getting it on with a shark, a giant lobster claw cannon, and a giant emerald on his crotch. You know, why not? I'm not really sure how this works. Like, did he have this design already in mind and he just needed the right amount of stuff to achieve it? Or did he just wing it and it just sort of happened? Honestly, I have no idea, but it's cool. This form is known as Metal Madness, and you have to fight it with the 3 teams that aren't Sonic. More on the fights themselves later. When that's done, Metal Madness sprouts wings and flies off, now being called Metal Overlord, and Team Super Sonic gives chase. Well, Sonic has his super form anyway. The other two just have these special bubbles that let them fly. Yay. Throughout the fight, Metal Overlord has lines of dialogue that actually give some insight to his character. He opens with calling Sonic his loathsome copy, which is pretty weird since you know he's the one with the copy.
Long time no see, Sonic, my loathsome copy.
But that's just the English dub. The Japanese version has some more stuff going on. Firstly, Metal Overlord doesn't refer to Sonic as his loathsome copy, but as his imperfect self. I think this makes more sense in the English version, since Metal was literally designed to be a better version of Sonic, and would naturally view him as this lesser, imperfect being.
See me as I am, no longer afraid of anything.
Now, these two lines I find very interesting. It's obvious that Metal Sonic had an inferiority complex, and this really took centre stage when it became Neo Metal. Remember, he was literally just designed for one single purpose, and has repeatedly totally failed at achieving it. Imagine the embarrassment, that immense feeling of ineptitude that only grows larger and larger with each unsuccessful attempt at completing your goal. It would absolutely eat away at you, and cause you to really question why you're even doing this. That inadequacy might even make you feel afraid. Afraid that your true purpose would amount to nothing. That no matter how hard you try, you will never accomplish anything. Neo Metal Sonic at this moment believes he's finally achieved his goal. He has finally achieved the power to surpass Sonic and no longer feels that fear. He will never again be afraid of that inadequacy, that sense of being a complete and utter failure. If it took the act of transforming himself into a hulking, misshapen beast to do so, then he would pay that price. Regardless of how the heroes looked down upon his work, he was proud of it. Upon his eventual defeat, Metal Overlord is sent crashing downwards, lamenting his failure. He had everything he needed to achieve victory, but still lost, proving that teamwork will always prevail over the one who steals the power of others. As he descends, in a moment of insanity, he declares himself to be the real Sonic.
I am the ultimate overlord, Metal Sonic. I am the real Sonic.
He is so overcome with despair that he has truly cracked. Then we've got his theme song. The best, in my humble opinion, vocal track from Crush 40, What I'm Made Of. Not only is it gloriously cheesy butt rock that gets you amped up for the boss fight, but it also has lyrics that actually go into more depth with Neo Metal Sonic as a character. Have a listen.
I don't care what you're thinking as you turn to me, 'cause what I have in my 2 hands is enough to set me free.
Neo Metal Sonic knows that he is viewed unfavourably by the others for the actions he's taken, but he doesn't care. It's given him the power to finally break free of not only Eggman's command, but also his obsessive desire to complete his goal. When he wins, as he no doubt believes he will no longer be shackled by that purpose.
I can fight the feeling to resist it all the time, but when it's just too much to take, you sneak up from behind.
Metal Sonic's feelings of failure and inadequacy may have been growing considerably as the years went on, but he resisted it, remaining Eggman's faithful servant. But eventually it became too much to handle, and he finally turned on his master. He might have literally snuck up from behind him.
Is it me you say you're looking for? Let me show you who I am and what I'm here for. Here for.
This is a challenge to Sonic. He is inviting his nemesis to a final showdown to determine once and for all who is superior. He's going to show Sonic exactly what his singular purpose is, to defeat him.
Trying to reach inside of me, trying to drain my energy. Let me show you just what I'm made of.
This part of the chorus, I believe, is actually from Sonic's perspective. He knows that Neo Metal Sonic was absorbing the data of others, and he is defiant in not allowing that to happen to him. In accepting Neo Metal Sonic's invitation to a showdown, he's going to show him just what he's made of.
Simple curiosity, trying to take a bite of me. Let me show you just what I'm made of now.
The second part of the chorus, I think, is a bit more vague, but it could be that Neo Metal Sonic's desires started out as a simple curiosity, a niggling feeling in the back of his mind. That simple curiosity continued to bite, or eat away at him, until it turned into his obsession. He is going to show Sonic what he's made of.
Like a million faces, I've recognized them all, and one by one they all become a number as they fall.
Eggman has likely produced millions of robots, and none of them have quite been like Metal Sonic. He remembers them all. He's seen them come and go, each and every one of them falling at the feet of the heroes. Whether or not he feels a certain affection towards his fellow robots is up for interpretation, but you never know. At the end of the day, they're just another number added to the amount of Eggman's creations that have been trashed, and he's seen them all.
In the face of reason, I can't take no more. One by one they all become a black mark on the floor.
Metal Sonic was unable to handle his obsession and inadequacy, and gave in. He couldn't take it anymore. He abandoned all reason and became a monster. He is self-assured that he is now all-powerful, and no matter who stands in his way, they are nothing. They are less than nothing. Nothing but a black mark on the floor where a hero once stood.
Can't take another lifelong try. You can't take another try.
Now this last part can either be interpreted as being from the point of view of Neo Metal Sonic or Sonic, announcing their superiority over the other, stating that they can try again and again and again, but they'll never win, even if it takes them a lifetime of attempts. Given that Metal Sonic's life was literally dedicated towards beating Sonic, then I lean more towards this being from Sonic's point of view. I do have to mention that, as is the case with lots of other aspects of this video, this is just my own interpretation of what I'm hearing, and it is not meant to be taken as objective fact. For all I know, the lyrics mean something entirely different and Crush 40 are laughing at me. If you have a completely different take on it, that's also fine, let me know. So, after all that gushing over how much I like him, that brings me back around to the whole point of this video. Neo Metal Sonic being wasted potential. There is plenty of interesting stuff here, but the overall execution was sorely lacking, and it's a shame. For all he's hyped up, Neo Metal Sonic himself isn't actually present in the game for very long. Aside from those brief glimpses you get beforehand, he's genuinely only on screen in his entirety for a few seconds, before he immediately transforms into Metal Madness. I think the twist of him being revealed only at the end is pretty dumb in general, and only hurts his presence. Sonic Heroes isn't a super cutscene story heavy game to begin with, but if he had been around since the start, then we could have at least had some more time with him to watch him do stuff. Having him as the twist villain at the end of an already story-light game just shortens the time he has to shine. Again, it's not like the twist was really that shocking anyway, since the game literally shows you it multiple times. Seriously, what was the point in designing this new look for him if he barely gets any time to walk around strutting his stuff? I would have loved a boss fight against him in this one. Maybe he could dash around and then turn into his T-1000 liquid goo and teleport around, shooting lightning at you or something. Anything! At least the comics blessed us there. Although, based on the boss fights against smaller opponents that we did get in Sonic Heroes, maybe it's for the best that we were spared one less. The boss fights against Metal Madness and Metal Overlord are alright. I mean, this is a 3D Sonic game, so you can't really expect much here. It's no Lingering Will, that's for sure. The boss fights do about as well as they could, given the limitations of the game they're from. Sonic Heroes is not what I would call a great game. It's got plenty of aspects of it that I really like, which you can see more of in my old review video, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is not really one of them. It's slippery, sometimes glitchy, and gets kinda frustrating to play, and this rings true in the Metal Madness fights. Metal Madness involves teams Dark, Rose, and Chaotix engaging him on platforms hitting his weak points with corresponding characters, and it's not really that fun. Some moves from your side just don't seem to land properly, and his attacks do go on for a bit too long. Each team carries over their life count from their respective stories, so if you've stocked up enough on those, then there's not really a problem here if you mess up. Phase 2, Metal Overlord, is where things get a bit better. The battle moves from the platforms up into the sky, and has you chasing him through the clouds. Metal Overlord chucks entire battleships at you, as well as crystal spears and spines, and you just gotta break your way through them using the right characters. Your ring count is continuously dropping, and you just need to keep picking up new ones. And while all this is happening, your team blast gauge is building up. This is the only way to actually damage him. So the battle itself is just a case of tanking his attacks and using team blast repeatedly until you win. The actual gameplay of it is pretty simple, and the spectacle really sells it. The setting of a stormy backdrop, the dialogue, and the song really elevates this, and I don't think it would be anywhere near as memorable if not for those. The boss fight against the Wyvern in Sonic Frontiers was a great example of what I think a next-gen, modernised Metal Overlord fight would be like. Flying through the sky as Super Sonic, breaking through a barrage of crap he chucks at you, while sparkling nonsense flies across the screen, and glorious butt rock fills your ears. I'm not a modder myself, so I don't know if it would even be possible, but if someone out there could just mod Wyvern into Metal Overlord and have it take place up in a stormy sky with what I'm made of playing, I would be so happy. Neo Metal Sonic's obvious inferiority complex and obsessive need to gain power in order to achieve his goal, even going so far as to break free of his chains and transform into a monster, is an awesome idea to me. There's so much more they could have explored here in a follow-up material if they'd only taken the time. You could have shown the after effects of this whole thing on Metal Sonic after the battle, how the transformation took a toll on its body, and how greater independence affected him. Even if he did become loyal to Eggman again after this, maybe something was left behind that resurfaced again. It could have explored the idea of what it truly means to be alive, about how a machine, created in a lab, could gain such emotions and desires like a living being would have. Whether he'd be the lead of a villainous faction of his own, team up with Eggman, or even be more of an anti-hero, I don't know. I definitely liked him doing his own thing though. He could even have Metal Overlord be a Broly type situation, where it just triggers when he loses control and goes absolutely berserk. This is the Sonic franchise however, so you can't really expect anything super in-depth, but indulge me for a bit here. Since Sonic Heroes was 20 years ago, Neo Metal Sonic has had very little presence in the series. He went right back to being mute and subservient to Eggman after this, and it's a shame. Neo Metal Sonic would have been an awesome nemesis, a true villainous counterpart that seeks to achieve his goals via method that directly contrasts those of the heroes. Shadow was the official rival, but he was softened up considerably and is a good guy now. He's also way older than Sonic, so he doesn't really have that much of a connection to him apart from being a fast hedgehog, but I think that might have been explored more in Sonic 06. I haven't played that, so I can't really say anything. Neo Metal Sonic was a result of Eggman's attempts at making an anti-Sonic that later gained total sentience and tried to carve out a path of his own. He was literally so obsessed with fulfilling his purpose of defeating Sonic that he was able to break free of his programming and do what he had to do. If he'd been able to exist as his own persistent character beyond this, I think they would have been able to do a lot more with him, and he would be a credible threat. Of course, that's all wishful thinking. Sonic games rarely have recurring main antagonists that aren't Eggman. You've got your Eraser-Jins and your Dark Ayers, who don't really stay beyond their respective entries. It's hard to imagine Neo Metal Sonic taking the centre stage again, because regular Metal Sonic is probably more recognisable to the majority of the audience, even though he seems consistently regulated to being a minor antagonist doing stuff for Eggman or whatever. I can't really imagine many people, other than obsessive nerds like me, wanting or even remembering a version of the character that showed up one time like 20 years ago, and Sega probably doesn't either, to be honest. Neo Metal Sonic did return in the comics though, and it was pretty awesome to see. In the Archie comics, he once again broke free of Eggman's control and was pretty badass. And also, in the IDW comics, he even quoted lyrics from What I'm Made Of, which was super on the pointy nose, but I loved it. It just tickled that fan-service-y bone like nothing else could. He even got a new golden form, which was cool. Unfortunately, this time it turned out he was still fanatically loyal to Eggman, so it lost some of that rebellious edge that I liked so much in Heroes. Still, having him back was nice. At least they remembered he exists. Neo Metal Sonic is a piece of Sonic history, a relic of a game from 2 decades ago. A character that had the potential to be really interesting, if only they'd explored him more. There is a really good character motivation in there, with what little we got of it doing a good job of portraying it, sort of. I mean, if it didn't, then I wouldn't really be here whinging about it, would I? I love the design, I love the concept, and I love the music. But they just didn't really do enough with him to really capitalise on that potential that I believe to be there. It's a really big shame because what is there is cool, there's just not enough of it. Neo Metal Sonic actually returned to the franchise fairly recently. For the first time ever, not only do you actually get to fight him, but you actually get to play as him. Holy crap, my prayers have been answered. I have been blessed by the Sega gods. Yuji Naka broke free of his chains to bestow upon me this holy gift. Oh my god. This dream game that finally came in clutch was an officially licensed Roblox crossover. Yeah, I'm done.